Fighter. Actor. Philosopher.
Be formless, shapeless, like water. Be water, my friend.
Bruce Lee was many things, but for the man who defied classification, the best description might be master.
The dude was just a true innovator.
He was super focused on what he wanted, and he got it.
He inspired me in every way.
And it wasn't just about martial arts, it was about life. He was a teacher of life.
But that life would be cut short.
I was like so stunned because he was so alive to me.
Yet before his death, Bruce Lee was able to pass on to us his greatest lesson, his belief in honest self-expression.
To honestly express yourself, whatever your art is, you have to turn that into a language, and that language is an expression.
Bruce Lee is an immortal.
How did he achieve such greatness? How did Bruce Lee become a master? It's Bruce Lee, the Master, on Bruce Lee Lives.
So why was Bruce so important?
When you look up the word inspiration in the dictionary, it should be Bruce Lee's picture. Because to me, I feel like he's just the ultimate inspirer, the ultimate motivator, you know what I mean?
Bruce Lee influenced so many people in so many different walks of life.
It's almost like superhero stuff where it's made up, but this is real.
Some of the things that Bruce Lee has said resonates forever.
Be water, my friend, my friend, my friend.
Now, Bruce Lee Lives. In the series that celebrates the life and legacy of the greatest martial artist of all time. On this episode, we take on the Master. To be revered and sought out signifies a certain level of respect and admiration for who you are and what you've contributed. Bruce Lee's teachings, acting, and fighting have had people seeking his wisdom for decades.
How about teaching me that?
But how did Bruce Lee gain such lofty status? What path did he follow to become a master to so many? In the early 60s, Bruce Lee's life was a whirlwind of activity. There was college, a marriage, the birth of his first child, and instructing martial arts. Around this time, Lee started to create something in the way of a message. He knew he had something important to offer the world and wanted to share it with a larger audience. So Lee went knocking on Hollywood's door.
Test X2, take 2.
An early screen test shot in 1965 shows the young Bruce Lee, unintimidated, confidence beaming.
What is the most powerful of the best forms of Oriental fighting?
Well, it's bad to say the best, but in my opinion, I think Kung Fu is pretty good.
It was that self-assurance that caught so many people's eyes and had them start to notice this young man with a plan.
His presence was just gnarly, and he just was confident at a young age even. Like, this whole way he carried himself was just, he just spewed confidence, you know what I mean? It was just cool.
But that confidence wasn't just cool. It was a part of his very essence, a foundation which Lee would be able to build on and use to communicate his message.
I mean, he immortalized confidence. You could see it in his eyes, you could see it in his body movements. Everything about him asserts that.
He was smart, he was super talented, but he was so present, he was super focused on what he wanted, and he got it. He was like, bring what you are and who you are to the table, and it can and probably will work.
By 1967, Bruce Lee had already achieved some fame in the United States with his co-starring role in The Green Hornet. But the show only lasted one season and was canceled. But that didn't deter Bruce. As with any great fighter, he got up and kept on fighting. It is a valuable lesson that still inspires.
I always felt like it's your personality and your character that really makes you who you are. And it's not, you know, your outer shell. It's been about like the fight inside you. And for me growing up, being a shorter, you know, basically a shorter guy in the class always. And I remember I played basketball and I was like the shortest dude on the team. It always made me try harder though. Like I always wanted to compete and be the best.
Bruce was that guy for me because like he was a small dude as well, but he had the charisma of a 7-footer. You know, like he had so much charisma that he couldn't fit in that little body.
He wanted to achieve and attacked it with vigor and passion. And I think everybody should approach your life that way.
It's been said that to be a master means you have achieved a point of perfection, an ideal. But Lee had a lesson for all the other masters out there. There was no such thing as perfection. There was always more to learn.
Bruce Lee was all about connecting with all the different things that he was, you know, the fighter, the philosopher, the cultural icon, the family man, the teacher.
Bruce Lee at that time is so way ahead of the game, you know, as a martial artist, as a human being. I often thought to myself, my gosh, we're following a child. I really didn't mind studying with a person that was much younger because though he was younger, he was so highly evolved and so mature for his age level.
There's two types of martial artists. I think there's the doer, the person that can execute martial arts skill, but also the teacher. And those are two separate skills. Bruce Lee had both.
Today, all over the world, Bruce's Jeet Kune Do is still taught. And as Lee would have wanted, it is constantly evolving.
You know, kind of feel it. Everything is feel. Very nice.
Dan Anderson, who studied under Bruce Lee's good friend Dan Inosanto, has been teaching Jeet Kune Do for 17 years.
Try to tighten up the transition a little bit better. Very nice.
He has taught Hollywood stars, including Mila Jovovich.
Bruce Lee, he used the philosophy and the understanding to let things go and to continuously improve and refine. I think growing as a martial artist is the most important principle. I try to learn every day from my students. I learn from the mistakes they make. I learn from what they pick up easy. I think that you should always constantly be growing and learning in your art. The mentoring behind what he did and the research behind what he did was way ahead of its time. Beautiful.
Between his martial arts and his movies, Bruce Lee seemed an unstoppable force. Coming up, the movie Game of Death is more than a film. It was a disguised philosophy lesson.
Game of Death was the best movie ever. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was in it. Like, are you kidding me right now?
And Bruce Lee appeared to be in control of his destiny. But unfortunately, fate is something no one can master. Bruce Lee was a fountain of knowledge about martial arts and life. But he didn't lecture or preach to get his message across. He did it through old-fashioned storytelling within his films.
I love the concept of Game of Death.
Game of Death was one of my favorite films.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was in it. Like, are you kidding me right now? Like, yellow sweatsuit? Like, that's awesome. Like, I don't care. I still love that movie, and I will fight you to the death over it.
Bruce Lee called upon his good friend Dan Inosanto to help on the movie.
So I get this phone call, and he says he wanted me to come to Hong Kong to help him film this picture called The Game of Death. And he tells me the storyline.
The key scene has Bruce Lee battling up the stairs of a pagoda. It was a metaphor for his teachings. The only way he would be able to move up the structure would be to fight a different opponent who possessed a different martial arts style. Lee would have to adapt and evolve with each fight. Key tenets of his beliefs.
He used each level to kind of symbolize the conquering of a master.
One of Lee's first encounters would be against Dan Inosanto's Filipino style of martial arts. Having won, Bruce Lee continues upward. He must now change, advance, against a Korean martial art called Hapkido. Finally, he meets what appears to be an insurmountable challenge. Not only is his opponent, played by the NBA star Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, almost double his size, but he also fights in the same Jeet Kune Do style as Bruce Lee.
The person at the end was supposed to represent the person with no style, the person who's all like water, the person who could flow and kind of do it all. It's really symbolic to show that at the top of the pagoda, you're not bound by anything. I think that's an approach for learning martial arts.
In the pagoda, each level was a different way of fighting. Don't put yourself in one way of fighting because you're restricting yourself against someone else that might have a different technique. I took that back into bike riding. Keep your mind wide open and be able to diversify your riding skills.
What Bruce was able to do was allow his philosophy to come through naturally. It wasn't forced on you. It was there for you to take, if you wanted it. Using your knowledge to help others was something Bruce was all about. Teaching and mentoring is something many of today's cultural icons also embrace.
I'm an older guy in the sport. I mean, I'm still kind of young, but
Grandma and Grandpa.
Yeah, I've been around for 10 years, you know, so anytime a new kid comes up and I try to bring them under my wing a little bit and let them know where I might have fallen short. And at the same time, I'm going to tell them everything that, I want this sport to be.
I feel like I'm constantly trying to teach the guys under me. By the time you both go together, give them my experiences to try to fast track them to where I'm at.
And he was always about inspiring people and helping people, you see, he wanted to teach everybody. He felt like it was an open book.
I'm so inspired when I change someone's thought process or their behavior to just be a better person or be a better martial artist. It's the most rewarding feeling in the world. Beautiful.
He didn't say, I'm gonna teach Jeet Kune Do and that's all you're gonna learn. That's it. He was like, I'll teach you Jeet Kune Do and then as a friend, what can you give back to me?
Let me remind you, Jeet Kune Do is just a name used, a boat to get one across. And once across, it is to be discarded and not to be carried on one's back.
It's Bruce Lee, the master. In 1940, under the Year of the Dragon, Bruce Lee was born. And for nearly 33 years, he battled, strived, and thrived. But in 1973, the dragon was gone. For someone so strong, so full of life, Lee's death, caused by a cerebral edema, was a shock.
One of the producers of Enter the Dragon invited me to the premiere. I was immediately sucked in by Bruce Lee and by what he could do and his presence and the charisma of the guy. I saw Fred in the lobby after the movie and I went up to him and I hugged him and, oh man, that Bruce Lee, what a future he has. And Fred said, he doesn't have any future, he died. I was like so stunned because he was so alive to me.
When I heard about Bruce Lee died, I don't want to believe it. Totally astonished, and it's a big loss.
The first time I ever saw my father cry was when my godfather passed away. I still remember it like it was yesterday. And it took a while for my dad to even believe that, he had died.
I think I cried easily, off and on, for about 48 hours. Because I was very, very close to him. And for me, that's a very emotional time in my life. I cried as much for him as I did when my parents passed away.
Bruce Lee, I think, in some ways, knew he was only going to be in this world for a little while because it seemed like he was in a race to tell everybody and anybody about martial arts, about his philosophy.
It's a testament to him as a human being that, almost 40 years after his death, people are still fascinated by him.
Philip Eng, a rising star in Asian martial arts films, is one of those who is still drawn to Bruce Lee. He finds traces from the icon's life as he makes his way through Hong Kong.
Now, this part of Hong Kong, it's one of the only parts of Hong Kong that's still the same as when Bruce Lee was around. So to get a sense of Bruce Lee, it's really nice to walk around these streets and see how he used to live. It always amazes me and that wherever we go in Hong Kong, we can still find pictures of Bruce Lee everywhere. I remember this scene. I tried to emulate this kick, but I ended up falling. Awesome. I think this place still exists in Macau. It's like a film in my hand of him doing nunchucks. And look at some of these newspapers from what, 1973? The Way of the Dragon is the name that I prefer to call it. 30 Hong Kong dollars. I might make a purchase a little bit later. In 1973, scenes from the Bruce Lee epic, Enter the Dragon, were shot at this location, including some of the most famous kung fu fights in movie history. You know, it's really amazing being here, you know. Coming to Hong Kong, making kung fu movies, now obviously it's all because of Bruce Lee, you know. And being at a location where he shot Enter the Dragon, it's amazing. Bruce Lee's gone, but he lives in our hearts.
Bruce Lee's death was nothing short of tragic, but death is no match for immortality. Up next, Bruce Lee continues to inspire and push us to greatness.
For me, Bruce is just, throughout my whole life, he just showed me how to dream big.
Bruce Lee's death was a shock, but in a short moment in time, he was able to build an inspiring legacy. He conquered TV and movies and set forth a new approach to martial arts. And although we are left spellbound by his visual presence, his most lasting impression comes from his heart and mind, his philosophy.
Many people didn't realize the amazing philosopher that he was. They saw him more as an action figure. He was indeed a philosopher.
His philosophies cover everything. Everything that we have to deal with in life and struggle, we can use his philosophy to overcome.
The philosophy of Jeet Kune Do, it kind of helps you express yourself. It kind of helps you formulate ideas better. You know, there's a secondary benefit than just learning how to defend yourself. There's a whole idea behind improving yourself.
It wasn't just about martial arts, it was about life. He was a teacher of life. You know, how to live your life in a way where the ends are limitless.
To achieve unlimited potential, Bruce Lee taught something he called honest self-expression. In other words, being true to yourself. Of all the thoughts and ideals Lee created, this was the one that Lee thought needed to be mastered to achieve greatness.
When Bruce Lee talked about express yourself, that's what I want out of my students. I'm going to teach you a few moves, but you make it yours. And I'm there to coach them along, not to tell them exactly what to do, but try to help them find what Bruce Lee found.
I totally agree with Bruce Lee's assessment of martial arts because there's no lying inside the cage. There's no lying during a fight. Whoever you are truly comes out.
Honestly expressing yourself is, to me, being honest with yourself and finding a way to communicate that through different barriers, whether they be language, cultural, moral, whatever the case may be.
Everything you ever aspire for or hope for, it's already within you. You just have to finally realize that. You don't have to look outside of you for some fake persona, for some this or that. It's inside of you already.
That's me on my dirt bike. Me being on the Ride Freestyle Motocross is an honest way to express me and my personality and who I am and my style on my dirt bike the way I want to do it.
Honest self-expression is genuinely doing what it is that you want to do that's going to fulfill you. We're in a sport where you got to push the limits, but you should push it in the way that you feel like doing it, not in the way that the industry thinks you should be or the judges or whomever.
Honest self-expression to me is about totally expressing yourself and trying to be as original as possible.
Bruce Lee mindset was all about that, letting that honest expression come out of you and to not be so confined in your thought process.
Whatever your art is, you have to turn that into a language, and that language is an expression.
When someone dies, you often reflect on the legacy they left behind. But Bruce Lee didn't leave anything behind. He pushed it forward. Nearly 40 years after his death, Bruce Lee still inspires us. But it is not just martial artists who are motivated by him. Actors, dancers, skateboarders, freestyle motocross riders. All of them have in some way been influenced by Bruce Lee, the master.
He just showed me how to dream big and go for it. Whether you reach the goal or not is not the important part. It's the effort and the process you're putting in to get there. It's the enjoying the journey of it.
No one's had the impact that Bruce Lee's had.
Bruce Lee's left, I think, a lot more than he probably would ever know behind.
Bruce Lee once said, in order to be immortalized, you got to live your life in a way that would be remembered. And he certainly did that way beyond.
Bruce Lee has touched millions and millions of people. The philosophy just keeps coming.
He inspired me in every way.
It's almost like superhero stuff where it's made up, but this is real. He really helped me become who I am today.
I mean, kids that are born in 2002, 2003, who are 8 or 9 years old now, know who Bruce Lee is. And he's just one of those guys, like the Beatles, that kind of just lives on.
When you see Bruce on screen, he is so vital, so alive, so intensely present in every frame of those films that you have to think of him as immortal.
Bruce Lee is an immortal, and the world is much better because of his spirit and his contribution.
You have different groups that don't get along with each other, but somehow he unites that. He lives in spirit, and he lives in the idea, and the idea is the strongest thing.
It is the spirit and ideas of Bruce Lee that will always inspire us, to make us question the norm, to push the limits, and ultimately have us be the best we can be. His way has become ours to strive for, and so it is through us that Bruce Lee lives.